It's late, maybe past 2. Your phone screen glows too brightly in the dark, but you haven't put it down yet. You're hoping again that this time maybe sleep will find you first, but it doesn't. Not yet. There's too much in your head. Memories with sharp edges, thoughts that spiral before you can catch them. You've been here before, on this quiet cliff between exhaustion and rest, where your body wants to give in, but your mind won't let it. Maybe it's been a hard week. Or a hard year. Maybe you've been carrying something heavy that no one else can see. Anxiety, grief, loneliness that doesn't make a sound but somehow fills every corner. If you're living with trauma, those old echoes might be especially loud right now. Or maybe your mind just runs too fast, like a river after rain, rushing past every chance to slow down. Whatever the reason, you're not alone here. I see you. And for the next little while, I'll keep you company. Let's go somewhere else. Somewhere with no clocks, no pressure, no pings or deadlines or emails asking for things you don't have. Let's step back, way back, before traffic, before taxes, before alphabets and electricity, before even the idea of time as we know it. You open your eyes to find yourself curled under a fur blanket, rough, scratchy, but warm. The earth beneath you is hard-packed and smells of ash and soil. The air is cold but not cruel. There's smoke above you, swirling slowly through a hole in the roof. You're in a hut. Low ceiling, curved walls, bones hanging near the entrance like charms. There's something simmering over the fire, something thick, savory, unfamiliar. You're hungry. But it's a quiet kind of hunger, patient, distant. Your fingers are dirty, calloused, your hair is knotted. You've lived here. This isn't a dream. Outside, the morning fog is lifting over the fields. There are no roads, just beaten paths. No buildings, only huts like yours. A few children run past barefoot, chasing each other with sticks. A woman squats by a stream, scrubbing something with sand. A man walks by with a bundle of spears slung over his back. Everyone knows what to do, even you. Even if you don't remember how. You belong here. You're part of this small pulsing life, this cluster of warmth and smoke and effort surrounded by endless whispering forest. And what happened before? Why you're here. How you got pulled out of your own century and into this village, it doesn't matter. Not tonight. You're not expected to fix anything or solve anything or even understand. You're just here. With the fire, with the silence, with the steady breath of the earth beneath you. If this voice is helping even just a little, you're welcome to like or subscribe. Only if it helps you feel less alone. No pressure. Just presence. So, where are you right now, sitting in the dark, lying in bed, one leg out of the blanket? Did you forget to brush your teeth again, or are you just too tired to care? That's okay. Truly. Let the quiet be enough for now. Turn off your light if it's still on. Let the screen be your only glow. Breathe deep. Unclench your jaw. Relax the space behind your eyes. You're allowed to rest. And tonight we'll spend some time in this prehistoric village, living through the day, sharing its stillness, and eventually braving the night. Let's begin. Hey guys, tonight we're going all the way back, way back into a time without clocks, names, or even the idea of history. You're not in a city or a town or even a proper village yet. You're in a prehistoric settlement made of thatch and smoke and habits passed down through stories. The floor is dirt. The walls are woven branches coated in dry mud that flakes when touched. You don't have a pillow. You barely have a name. And your body is already sore. You probably won't survive this, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Maybe you're curled under a blanket, or maybe it's just you alone in the quiet dark, letting this voice carry you somewhere far from the stress of today. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake just before the sun. Not because an alarm rings or someone calls your name, no one would dare. The chill air has crept into your bones and your back complains against the woven mat of dried reeds that served as your bed. You stretch a little stiff-limbed and groggy, hearing the first rustlings of others around you. The hut is small, barely large enough for 4 bodies in a central fire pit that's now a gray circle of ash. Someone is already stirring the coals, coaxing the last of last night's fire back to life. It smells of smoke, damp wool, and a faint hint of something sour, fermenting berries maybe, or just yesterday's sweat clinging to animal skin cloaks. Outside, there's no sound of traffic, no hum of distant machinery, just bird song, shrill, repetitive, too awake for how you feel. The light filtering through the doorway is blue and cold, not yet touched by sunlight. And yet everyone is moving. You sit up and immediately regret it. Your hip aches from sleeping on a rock you didn't notice last night. Your neck feels like it twisted the wrong way hours ago and never bothered to fix itself. You scratch at the dried mud caked on your calf and think vaguely about washing. Then again, no one smells particularly fresh in this place. Personal hygiene is less about freshness and more about not being visibly crusted in dirt. A child outside trips over something and cries. A dog, well, a half-wolf-looking creature that tolerates your presence, lets out one lazy bark and then goes back to watching the edge of the woods. Inside, someone hands you a bundle of dried leaves. You unfold it, revealing a few morsels from last night, crushed acorns mixed with ash cakes. Small discs of flour and water baked under embers until they're hard enough to chip a tooth on. You nibble. It's not delicious. It's not even warm. But it's food. And in this life, food is never taken for granted. Historians still argue whether people in these early villages thought about meals in any kind of flavor profile sense, or whether taste was irrelevant compared to calories and ritual. There's evidence, strangely enough, that some families added herbs or wild onions, not for nutrition, but just because it felt right. A small act of rebellion against blandness, maybe. Someone passes you a cup, a gourd really filled with lukewarm water tinged brown from the clay pot it sat in overnight. You sip. It tastes like dust and riverbed, but it doesn't make you sick, so you count that as a win. The sun finally breaks above the hills and the color of everything shifts. What was bluish and ghostly now turns golden and grounded. The mud walls seem less eerie. The branches overhead look less like claws. You're against all odds still here. Your job today? Well, the same as yesterday and likely the same as tomorrow. There is always something to fix, carry, grind, lift, or patch. No one has weekends. The entire notion of leisure hasn't been invented yet. You stand, stretching again, hearing that ominous little crunch in your lower back. One of the elders, barefoot, bent and cheerful in a very stoic kind of way, nods toward the river path. Time to fill the pots. You groan softly. The pots are heavy even when empty. You'll need to carry them over 2 hills past the blackberry bushes, which are currently out of season, and only offering thorns, and across that one stubborn patch of muck that tries to steal a shoe every time. But first you squat near the embers and poke at one ash cake left too close to the heat. You flip it gently with a stick. It cracks, releasing a faint puff of smoke and what might generously be described as aroma. You look around the room. 3 others. None of them talking. All chewing with quiet, dogged focus. One of them sneezes and everyone instinctively glances up at the roof, half expecting the motion to knock more clay loose. It's been patched so many times it looks like a patchwork quilt made entirely of dirt. Outside, the wind picks up slightly. You hear it whisper through the narrow gaps between huts. It sounds like it's speaking. You don't know the language, but it doesn't sound angry. Just old. There are no mirrors. You catch your reflection only briefly in a puddle as you leave your face puffy from sleep hair, wild and smoky. You look frankly prehistoric. And for once, that's exactly right. You're not quite sure when breakfast turned into a chore, but here you are, crouched beside the fire, nudging glowing embers aside to make space for the flat rocks. They're hot already, left from last night's cooking, and you know if you touch them the wrong way, you'll lose a layer of skin. That's happened before. A blister the size of a walnut and no sympathy from anyone. Not because they're unkind, but because, well, everyone's got one. The ash cakes go on first. You mix the dough by feel, not recipe, just water and ground seeds, maybe some crushed root, all mashed together in a wooden bowl with a smoothed-out stone pestle. There's no yeast, no spices, and definitely no butter. But if you pat the dough thin and wait just long enough, it bubbles a little from the heat and turns firm. That's the goal. Anything more and it blackens. Anything less and it sticks to your teeth like paste. Someone's roasting a handful of snail shells nearby. You try not to stare. It's impolite. But the smell is sharp and oddly sweet, like ocean and metal and burnt leaves, and your stomach makes an audible complaint. You look away, focusing instead on your own task. One of the kids toddles past, dragging a stick and smearing mud into a perfect line. He's got ash on his face and a cheerful, slack-jawed smile like he just invented art. No one corrects him. He might have. Historians still argue whether symbolic markings, circles, lines, finger paint smears counted as communication, or were just bored toddlers with too much mud. You flip the first cake. The bottom is golden speckled with gray flecks from the fire. It smells better than it tastes, and you already know it'll be chewy. You don't mind. Your jaw has learned to handle it. There's a kind of rhythm to this flip, wait, slide it off, add a new one. You hum without realizing it. A low throat tune your mother used to make when grinding seeds. It has no words, no melody. Just a sound passed from cook to cook like a tradition nobody remembers starting. Outside, someone starts banging wood against stone. The sound cuts through the morning stillness like a threat. But it's just the tool shed, such as it is being opened for the day. You'll probably be sharpening something later, or binding twine for baskets, or scraping fat from a hide. Every hour is some task, every task has a sound, and eventually you know them all by name. You take your finished cakes to the shared board, really just a plank laid across two old stumps, and leave them there with the others. No one takes more than one. Not because it's a rule, but because that's the kind of rule that doesn't need to be said. You take one. You eat it slowly. You don't complain. You're halfway through yours when a girl next to you sneezes twice, then 3 times. Someone clicks their tongue and mumbles something about dust spirits. You look at her and she shrugs, eyes, watery hand wiping across her nose without shame. There are no handkerchiefs. Just sleeves, or the back of your hand. Another handful of nuts gets tossed on the fire. These aren't for eating. They're to smoke out the bugs. Apparently, certain scents make biting flies confused. Whether it works is debatable, but it makes the air smell spicy and weird in a not unpleasant way. You glance up and see smoke trailing out the top of the thatched roof, curling like a lazy snake toward the rising sun. Light breaks through the leaves in thick gold shafts. It catches dust motes mid-air, illuminating them like stars. You chew the last bite of your ash cake slowly. Your teeth hit something hard, probably a bit of sand in the mix, and you wince but don't spit. Everyone does it. Everyone understands. This food is survival, not luxury. A woman beside you cracks open a gourd, not to drink. She's using it as a bowl, carefully pouring in hot water and some crushed leaves from a leather pouch. She offers it around. It smells bitter and earthy, like something that might keep you awake or knock you out depending on how much you drink. You pass politely. Your hands feel dry from the heat of the fire, so you rub them on your knees, smearing ash into old stains. You stand up too quickly and feel that moment of dizzy lightness, the blood not quite ready to rise with you. You plant your feet and wait. Then comes the sound that marks the shift in the day, a conch shell blown from the center of the clearing. You all freeze. Not in fear, this isn't an alarm, it's just the morning call to work. But it always stirs something in your chest, a flicker of adrenaline, a quiet groan. Your body knows what comes next, and so you gather your things. The stone scraper, the water pot, the small woven sling for carrying grain or bones or whatever you're told to move next. There's no schedule, only tasks. Someone's already tugging a mat toward the edge of the clearing to begin weaving. Someone else is stacking firewood with mechanical patience. You pick up the nearest pot and head toward the trail that leads to the river. Your shoulders sag a little. You slept crooked. You ate too fast. The pot digs into your hip. But the sun is warm now and the dirt under your feet feels dry and soft. And for a brief, surprising moment, you're almost grateful to be moving. Almost. The pot is heavier than it looks. It always is. Not because it's full yet, but because it's awkward, wide, and shallow with a rough base that scrapes your thigh with every other step. You try shifting it to your other hip, and the edge catches on your belt loop. Not that you're wearing anything with loops. It's just habit to call that bit of frayed rope a belt. The path to the river is muddy and veined with roots. Some are smooth from so many feet passing like old bone buried in the dirt. Others stick up just high enough to catch a toe and send someone flying. You've been that someone more than once. Birds call from somewhere above you, sharp chirps echoing in the cool air, and for a second it's hard to tell if they're talking to each other or mocking you. Probably both. A woman a few paces ahead is already humming. You don't recognize the tune, but it has that same up and down lilt of songs sung while walking. No drums, no flutes, just the rhythm of feet and breath. You join her unconsciously, letting the hum buzz in your throat, matching your steps to her slow, steady pace. Halfway down the trail, the mud gives way to gravel. You remember this patch. Last time you slipped and cracked your elbow hard enough to see stars. Someone laughed, then offered you a moss poultice. That's just how things go. Pain, laughter, moss. Sometimes in that order. A child darts past barefoot pot, balanced on her head like it weighs nothing. Her feet slap the path and she doesn't look down once. You glance at your own pot, then at her retreating back. Yeah, no. You're definitely still a beginner. You reach the riverbank just as the sun clears the treetops. The light hits the water like melted metal and the steam rises in lazy curls. You crouch and dip the pot carefully. The current pulls a bit harder than you expect, jerking the pot sideways. You almost tip over. It wouldn't be the first time. The water smells like moss and fish. Not unpleasant, just natural. You scoop until the pot is nearly full, then lift with both hands, knees bent back, groaning. The weight tugs your arms down, but you manage to stand. Behind you, someone yells. Not in fear, just one of those daily reminders to not forget the reeds. You sigh and trudge toward a clump of tall, waving stalks, grabbing a few thick ones and looping them through your sash. Reed gathering is dull. You twist, snap, tug. Twist, snap, tug. Your fingers itch from the sap and your wrists get nicked by the dry edges. But they'll be useful later, woven into mats or baskets or traps. Maybe all three. In this world, everything has a second life. You glance downriver. The flow is steady, peppered with fallen branches and the occasional frog plop. That sound plop is more comforting than you'd like to admit. It means no big predators are near. Usually. Your mind drifts just a little. You think of the old stories about water spirits, long-haired women with fish eyes waiting just beneath the surface. One elder swears he saw one once brushing her teeth with a cattail. Historians still argue whether these stories were cautionary tales or hallucinations brought on by drinking spoiled mead. A splash behind you jolts you back. Just someone else fetching water. You breathe out, but your heart doesn't slow right away. On the walk back, your arms burn almost immediately. Every step sends ripples across the water's surface, and you try not to spill too much. You fail. You always do. You pass others now, people heading to the river, people heading back, people just sitting and picking fleas from each other's hair. One of them offers you a half smile. You return it. It's more effort than a nod, but less than conversation. There's a moment about 3/4 up the trail where the path curves through a small grove of trees. Here the light turns greenish, filtered through leaves, and the air cools. It's the nicest part of the walk, and you slow down slightly just to enjoy it. There's birdsong here too, a different kind. Softer, less aggressive. Like even the birds are sleepy. You step over a rotten log and see something twitch beneath it. You don't stop. If it was dangerous, it would have moved faster. The pot is nearly digging into your hip now, and your hands are going numb. You adjust your grip and grunt. Someone passes you with a smaller pot and no visible effort. You resist the urge to throw yours at them. Finally, you reach the clearing again. The sound of the village low chatter, a thud here, a whistle there, greets you like a song you didn't know you missed. You set the pot down with a relieved groan and stretch your arms above your head. They crack in protest. You don't care. Someone takes the pot from you without a word, disappearing into the shade. That's the rule. If you fetched, someone else boils. If you boil, someone else pours. No one does everything. Everyone does something. You wipe your hands on your shirt, which leaves a darker smear than before. It doesn't matter. Everything is stained. Everything is useful. You take a deep breath, catching the scent of wet clay wood smoke and crushed grass. The smell of the day beginning again. You think briefly about what's next. Grinding. Or maybe basket weaving. Or maybe someone needs help tanning a hide. It doesn't really matter. It'll be something hard, something repetitive, and something you'll be good at eventually. That's the thing about this life. You don't choose your tasks. You survive them. And then you do it again tomorrow. You sit for a minute. Not because you're tired, though you are, but because sitting is allowed. Not always. But now, there's a patch of flat stone warmed by the sun just at the edge of the fire circle, and it calls to your sore legs like a familiar bed might in some fantasy world with mattresses and springs. A few others sit with you. One is pulling thorns out of their palm using a sliver of bone. Another is weaving a basket in a rhythm that suggests they could do it asleep. You envy that kind of muscle memory. You barely remember which end of the reed goes first half the time. A goat walks past. Just walks. Like it owns the place. Someone behind you mutters third time that one's escaped today, and no one moves to stop it. The goat, to its credit, doesn't eat anything important. Just sniffs around, head twitching at invisible flies. You squint up at the sky. The sun's not quite overhead yet, but it's getting there, which means you've got maybe 20 minutes before it's too hot to pretend sitting is a productive activity. And then the real work starts. Today you're on grain duty. Not the glamorous part, harvesting or storing, but the in-between. The bash it with rocks until it stops being a plant part. You head over to the grinding stones where the flat slab and hand-sized roller wait like old enemies. You drop to your knees and grab a small sack of grain, some mix of millet and mystery seeds. The rhythm of grinding is as boring as it is soothing. Push, pull, push, pull. Your shoulders burn fast, but your hands find their own path. The stone makes a soft, gritty whisper with each pass. Someone hums again. Might be the same tune as earlier. Might not. A breeze kicks up and dusts your face with flour. You sneeze into your elbow. Someone laughs. You don't even look up. Grinding takes hours. Not in a metaphorical, ugh, this feels like forever kind of way. Literally hours. Each batch gives you a small pile of meal, enough for 1 or 2 people. And that's if you're fast. Which, let's be honest, you're not. Yet, your mind wanders as your arms work. You remember hearing about the woman with the extra thumb. She grinds twice as fast. Some say it's a mutation, others call it a gift from the gods. Historians still argue whether physical anomalies like hers were revered or quietly ignored depending on how useful they were. The sun climbs higher. Your knees ache. You shift to one side, then the other. You try humming, but it comes out like a sigh. Grinding is one of those tasks that eats time and thoughts. You forget what hour it is. You forget why you were annoyed earlier. You forget to be anxious. Eventually, someone taps your shoulder. You jump a little. It's just a teen with a tooth gap and 2 long braids reaching for your finished pile. "I'll take it," they mumble. You nod and wipe your hands on your thighs. A faint ghost of flour lingers on your skin. You stand, stretch, feel your back crack again. Somewhere across the clearing, someone calls out for help. It's the hide station. Of course. Tanning hides is not anyone's favorite. The smell alone is a problem. The process involves scraping away leftover flesh, soaking the skin in something unspeakable, usually animal brain or stale urine, and stretching it until it's smooth and soft. The end result is worth it, but the journey, not so much. You make your way over, holding your breath instinctively. It doesn't help. The stench is part of the air here. You could bottle it, but no one would buy it. They hand you a curved bone scraper and nod toward a freshly cleaned pelt draped over a log. You kneel again and your knees protest loudly. But you've already started, so too late now. The scraping is rhythmic too. Less meditative, more aggressive. You push the tool across the hide, watching bits of leftover tissue curl away. It's gross. You get used to it. Across from you, someone's telling a story. Something about a dream they had where they were chased by a bird the size of a bear. Everyone laughs at the punchline, which you miss, but you chuckle anyway. Dream animals are always funny until they're real. You pause to wipe sweat from your forehead. Your hands smell terrible and there's no escaping it. You consider dipping them in the ash pile later just to reset your nose. The sun is fully overhead now. Shadows vanish. Everything is bright, sharp, and somehow slower. Heat presses on your shoulders like a heavy animal, and even the birds seem quieter. By the time the hide is smooth, your arms feel rubbery and your stomach growls. Lunch isn't a big affair, just a shared bowl of porridge or boiled roots passed around the circle. Sometimes there's dried meat. Rarely there's fruit. Today it's flatbread and something that might be turnip stew. You sit again cross-legged and accept the food with both hands. No one talks much, just chewing, swallowing, and the occasional grunt of agreement. You watch the steam rise from the stew and think briefly about the people who used to live here before your group. Bones found in the caves say this place has seen thousands of years of chewing and grunting. Historians still argue whether these transitions were peaceful integrations or violent takeovers. After lunch, the cleanup is minimal. Everyone licks their fingers and hands the bowls back to the cooking group. You sip a little water and resist the urge to lie flat on your back and nap. Instead, you head toward the outer wall, a loose pile of rocks and woven branches, because rumor says the traps need checking. And if there's anything caught, you might actually get to eat meat tonight. You take the long way around the camp. Not because it's faster, definitely not, but because it gives you a few extra minutes before whatever you find in those traps becomes your responsibility. You trail your fingers along the rough woven fence as you walk, palm brushing twigs and scratchy vines. A dragonfly flickers past wings, catching the sun like flakes of mica. For a second, you envy its simplicity. Fly, eat, mate, repeat. The fence isn't exactly a defensive masterpiece. If a bear or worse, a desperate human really wanted in, they could push through with a sneeze. But it marks the boundary, and boundaries matter. Boundaries mean territory. Territory means rules, and you're still learning them. There's a kid ahead of you crouched over something in the grass. You walk faster. The traps are spaced out in a zigzag pattern beyond the fence-woven baskets baited with bits of fermented root meant to lure birds, rabbits, or unlucky rodents. And sometimes they work. Mostly they feed insects. The first trap is empty. Classic. The second has a pile of feathers and a bent twig that probably means something got away or something bigger pulled it apart. The third, though, holds a prize, a fat, twitching rabbit, alive and confused. It blinks at you like it's questioning your moral integrity. You blink back. You're not the one who built the trap, so technically the rabbit doesn't belong to you. But you know the kid who did, and they're still inside the camp mending sandals or sulking about chores. You tie the trap shut and hoist it over your shoulder. It squirms once, then gives up. Same little guy, same. There's a rule here about caught animals. If you kill it, you clean it. And if you clean it, you're eating last. Because guts get on your hands and smell gets in your hair, and no one wants intestines next to their roasted yams. It's not in any stone tablet or cave painting, but it's understood. One of those rules you break only once. You walk the perimeter a while longer, pretending to check traps, but really just stretching the quiet. A little space, a little breeze, a little bit of not being watched or assigned a task. You see a lizard skitter across a sun-baked rock and you wonder if it's edible. Probably. But catching it would use more energy than it's worth. Someone whistles in the distance a short, sharp note. You whistle back. Code for still alive, or maybe just nothing ate me yet. These days, it's enough. You circle back to the camp with the rabbit still in its trap, now resigned to its fate. A few people glance up as you walk in. No one claps. No one cheers. It's just food. You hand it over to an older woman by the fire who nods once and immediately goes for the knife. Her hands are steady. Too steady. You look away before the first cut. Instead, you find a shady patch near the communal stone ring and sit. Your legs fold automatically. The stone's still warm but not burning. You pick up a stick and start poking at the dirt, drawing lines you'll erase in 5 minutes. Across from you, someone's humming again. You wish you knew the words. A small group is sharpening tools nearby, flints mostly. Each one is the result of 100 precise strikes against rock. You try it once and nearly lost a fingernail. Some people are born with the knack. Others are better at not injuring themselves. You belong to neither group. They're preparing for a hunt tomorrow, 2 days out, 1 day back, assuming nothing goes wrong. Which it always does. You're not invited this time. Too new. Too loud. Maybe next time. One of the hunters glances up and says, "You still grind like a wounded frog." You grin. It's meant as teasing. Probably. You reply, "Better than looking like one." Laughter, low and brief. You're in. Later the rabbit reappears as stew. You take your portion and find a quiet corner. The meat is chewy, the broth thin, but there's warmth in it. And salt. Someone remembered to add salt. You eat slowly, watching the flames flicker against the evening haze. Around you, the village settles into its dusk rhythm. Tools are put away. Fires are stoked or smothered. Kids are corralled. Songs start, some slow and soft, others just a steady beat on an overturned bowl. No one announces bedtime. It just happens. You linger by the fire a bit longer, letting the heat soak into your bones. Across the way, someone's retelling the tale of the first fire, the version where a hawk stole it from the gods and dropped it into a tree. There are at least 5 versions of that story, each with a different bird, and none quite agreeing on whether it was a blessing or a punishment. Historians still argue whether fire myths originated as warnings or celebrations. As the stars begin to creep into the sky, you roll out your sleeping mat near the communal wall. The ground is firm but familiar. You pull a hide over your shoulders and breathe deep. The air smells like smoke ash, crushed grass, and faintly of rabbit. Someone snores. Someone else mutters in their sleep. An owl hoots in the distance. The night insects start their chorus, a dozen tiny chirping lullabies overlaid with occasional rustles from the dark tree line. You think about the rules again, not the obvious ones like don't touch the fire or don't steal meat. The other ones, the silent ones, like don't sleep too close to someone else's mate. Don't sing the burial song unless someone's actually dead. Don't look too long at the shaman's scars. You broke one once. Didn't mean to. Just touched a carved bone tied around a tree not knowing it marked a sacred spot. Spent a week sleeping outside the circle until someone casually handed you a bowl again. That was the sign. You were allowed back in. No one ever mentioned it. But you never forgot. The fire crackles low. A shooting star arcs across the sky too fast for a wish. You close your eyes. You're not sure what time it is when you wake up. No clocks, no sundials. Just a vague sense that the temperature has dropped and that something, not someone, but something disturbed your sleep. You lie still, ears open, eyes closed. You're not the only one stirring. A quiet rustle a few mats away. Someone coughs. Someone else shifts and grumbles. The fire has died down to soft orange lumps. The air smells more like smoke and damp grass than stew now. You pull the hide tighter around your shoulders and listen. The jungle beyond the fence is never truly silent. Crickets, frogs, an occasional branch cracking somewhere out there in the darkness. Could be wind. Could be something with teeth. Best not to assume. You crack one eye open. The stars are clear above, thousands of them unbothered by clouds or city lights. The moon isn't full, but it's enough to paint faint silver shapes over everything, logs, huts, shadows. Especially the shadows. One looks a little too long. You stare at it until your eyes hurt. It doesn't move, probably a log. Your mat is on the outer edge of the sleeping circle. Not the safest spot, but not the worst. The real rookies get the perimeter. You're one layer in. Trusted-ish. If something leaps the fence, you've got at least a 5-second head start. Luxury by prehistoric standards. Eventually, you shift carefully and sit up. A couple of eyes glint in the firelight. One nods at you sleepily, another just rolls over. You stretch your neck, then your arms, then your back, feeling every joint crack like dry wood. There's a strange peace to these moments, the in-between hours, when it's too early to start and too late to still be awake. A low growl breaks the stillness, not from inside the camp, from outside, short, guttural, maybe a cat, maybe something worse. Your breath stops mid-exhale. Across the fire pit, a man with a white-streaked beard is already holding his spear. He doesn't speak. He just listens. The point tilted slightly upward, as if the spear itself can sniff the wind. It growls again, closer this time. You and 3 others exchange looks. Everyone knows the rule: if you hear it twice, you get up. No arguments. You grab the club near your mat, the one carved out of a gnarled root. Not elegant, but heavy. You stand slow and silent. Every crunch of your bare feet on the packed dirt feels like a thunderclap. A baby whines, quickly hushed. Someone grabs a torch, lighting it with a twist of dry grass. Flame flares, then settles. The shadows scatter for a second. You all move toward the noise, 6 of you forming a loose V. The fire crackles behind you, warm on your back. Ahead is the edge of the camp, marked by those flimsy fences and hope. The noise doesn't come again, but the stillness now feels too heavy, like a held breath. At the boundary, you pause. You can't see anything, but something sees you. You know that feeling, the weight of eyes in the dark. Maybe it's a leopard, maybe it's a boar, or maybe it's nothing at all, and the night is just reminding you how small you are. The man with the white-streaked beard tosses a stone into the trees. Nothing stirs. He waits, then grunts and gestures everyone back. No words, just a decision. You all obey. Back by the fire, people settle in again. No one comments, no one jokes, because sometimes silence is the safest thing you can share, especially when you're not entirely sure the thing out there is gone. You lie back down, heartbeat still elevated, listening to the lull of frogs trying to outsing your anxiety. The mat feels colder now. You bury your face into the hide, trying to recapture the warmth. You start to drift again when someone starts muttering a story. A quiet voice, rasping but clear. It's an elder lying on their back, looking at the stars and talking to whoever's still half awake enough to listen. There was a time, the voice says, when the animals and the people spoke the same language. But the people bragged too much, so the animals left. One by one. And the last to leave was the owl, who took the memory of the words with her. The storyteller pauses, lets that hang in the air like mist. Now the owl calls to remind us, be quiet, be humble, or be alone. Someone chuckles. Another whispers that owl must be working overtime with you. Soft laughter. The kind that doesn't wake the babies. It's enough to cut the tension. You close your eyes again. But before you sleep, you remember what the elders told you your first week here. That the forest doesn't hate you, it just doesn't care. You can scream, cry, plead, it won't change the wind. You can be careful, generous, obedient, it won't stop the rain. All you can do is learn its rhythm and walk lightly. Historians still argue whether early humans viewed the night as sacred or simply dangerous. The line between religion and survival was thin. A noise in the dark could be a god, a ghost, or a hungry thing with fur and fangs. You learn to pray either way. You listen to the breathing around you. Someone snores again. Someone's muttering in their sleep, nothing intelligible, just sounds. A small thud. Probably someone rolling off their mat. You imagine what tomorrow will bring. More traps. Maybe a weaving lesson. Maybe you'll finally be trusted with the smoking pit where they preserve meat using only smoke leaves and suspicion. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll be invited to help carve the new totem post. Big honor, big responsibility, also a lot of splinters. You yawn, deep and long. The kind of yawn that feels like it stretches your soul a little thinner. The fire is down to coals now. The stars shift above you, inching across the night like they're just as tired as you are. You roll onto your side, curl your knees, and finally let yourself rest. You wake to the faint smell of smoke and the unmistakable scent of damp ash clinging to skin and straw. Morning here doesn't arrive with sunlight gently trickling in through blinds. It stumbles in like a sleepy mammoth, heavy and humid, with a sky that goes from black to gray to a soft amber that barely pierces the canopy. You stretch again because your body demands it. The kind of stretch where your joints pop like firewood and you hope it wasn't your spine making that last sound. Somewhere a bird calls. Loud. Too loud for a creature its size. Nature has no volume control. You shuffle to the edge of the sleeping circle, yawning into your elbow. A few others are already up. Someone's poking at the ashes of last night's fire with a stick, hoping to coax a reluctant flame into being. You help, or pretend to, while really just trying to warm your hands. There's a rhythm to this morning fire water, fetching a small piece of something chewy, either dried fish or regret in leather form. You chew it anyway. Because calories are currency and you are perpetually broke. Someone stumbles back from the tree line with a small jug of water gathered from a stream half a kilometer away. They pour it into a shallow stone basin and everyone cups their hands for a sip. You wait your turn. The water is cold, slightly gritty, but it's wet and it doesn't try to bite you, so that's a win. By now the camp is humming. Not loudly, just enough to know it's alive. Fire crackling, feet padding, flint tapping. Two teenagers are arguing over who gets to carry the stone axe today, even though neither of them is qualified to use it. It's ceremonial at best, mostly for show, like prehistoric sunglasses. You get assigned to food today. Again, foraging mostly. Berries, roots, maybe a mushroom or two if you can remember which ones won't send your intestines on a vision quest. You're teamed up with 3 others and none of you are particularly excited, but you nod and pretend you are because the alternative is helping tan hides. And that involves smell patience and a truly disturbing amount of brain matter. You set off into the underbrush, your feet familiar with the path, dodging rocks and roots like your toes have minds of their own. The jungle isn't as loud as last night, but it still makes its presence known, buzzing, creaking, whispering. Every sound has layers. Wind through leaves, leaves against bark, bark crumbling under beetles. And then the occasional scream of a monkey doing something dramatic overhead. You start with the safer plants, the ones that grow low and bright and don't fight back. A few tubers here, some berries there. You check the undersides of leaves for caterpillars just in case. Not because they're dangerous, but because biting into one is like chewing on someone else's bad decision. A small clearing comes into view. One of the others, Kella, maybe spots something promising, a tangle of low bushes with purplish fruit. She gestures for quiet, like you're sneaking up on them. You follow her lead anyway. You kneel, inspect, sniff, poke. No strange ooze, no bitter sap. No bugs doing interpretive dances on the stems. You take one bite cautiously. It's tart, sweet, slightly fuzzy. Acceptable. You all start picking, filling the woven basket someone actually remembered to bring this time. Then you hear it. A rustle, not wind, not bird. Something heavy. Everyone freezes. Your hand stills mid-reach. You glance toward the trees and out steps a wild boar. Now this isn't a cartoon pig, this is a prehistoric boar, all wiry fur and muscle and tusks curved like nature's own scythe. It grunts. You blink. It stares at you like you owe it money. The others are already backing up. One drops the basket. You think about climbing a tree, but the nearest one is more of a suggestion than an actual trunk. So you just freeze. Not wise, not brave. Just biologically incapable of making a decision at this exact moment. Historians still argue whether humans learned bravery or just got really good at being frozen with fear until the threat left out of confusion. The boar snorts again, digs at the dirt, then for reasons you'll never understand, just turns around and walks off. Like you weren't worth the charge. Like it had better things to do. Like it pitied you. You wait a full minute before moving. Your legs feel like jelly. One of your foraging partners pats you on the back and says that was almost impressive. You're not sure if they meant your reaction or your ability to not wet yourself. Back at the camp, you hand over the berries like they're treasure from a dragon's hoard. Everyone cheers a little too loudly. The berries aren't even that great. But the fact that you didn't die collecting them makes them gourmet. You finally get to sit. You watch smoke curl up from the cooking pit. You rest your elbows on your knees. The elder who told the owl story last night wanders past, humming a tune that sounds like half a lullaby and half a warning. You think again about that boar. Not just the fear, but the weird aftertaste of survival. How it buzzes in your bones. Like every second after it didn't kill you is brighter somehow. You're exhausted and sore and your hand is bleeding slightly from a bramble, but for a moment the sun hits your face and the air smells like earth and smoke and life. And you smile. You're not even halfway through the day. And already your legs feel like they've walked to the edge of the world and back barefoot uphill both ways. The midday heat isn't just warm, it wraps around your limbs like a sluggish snake, making every motion feel sticky and slow. Sweat trickles down your spine in places you didn't know could sweat. There's no breeze. The air itself seems to weigh more. Still you move. There's no such thing as taking the afternoon off here. The concept of leisure hasn't been invented yet. Maybe someone's carving it into a rock as we speak, but for now your break is 15 minutes of sitting on a flat stone that's marginally less hot than the others, chewing on a dried fig and pretending it's refreshing. Someone waves you over, it's time for thatching, because your hut, if you can call a lopsided triangle of sticks and grass a hut, has developed a hole. Two, actually. One from a branch that fell during the last storm, and another from a toddler who thought stabbing the roof with a stick was an acceptable afternoon activity. You can't blame him. You've done worse. So you gather what looks like dry reeds from the edge of the marsh. They're brittle, whispery things that slice your fingers if you aren't careful, which you're not. But you collect them anyway, binding them into bundles with strips of bark. It's the prehistoric equivalent of home maintenance. No warranty, no subcontractors, just you, your sore back, and a prayer to the nearest tree spirit. You clamber up onto the frame of the hut, balancing on beams that creak more than you'd like. As you work, you find your mind drifting because repetitive labor has that effect. You think about the seasons, about how the elders said the weather patterns were shifting, about how they claimed the rains now came too early or too late, and no one could agree if that was the will of the gods or just a sign that everyone had forgotten how to read the wind. Historians still argue whether early communities could actually predict weather with accuracy or were just really good at pretending they could until it either rained or didn't. You finish thatching the hole and climb down every joint in your body, protesting like an angry council of elders. But the hut looks decent, not palatial, not rainproof, but won't collapse during the next sneeze of a wind decent, which is good enough. Someone's calling again. This time it's the meat crew. You forgot it was your turn. Your feet drag as you walk toward the pit where the catch of the morning lies, sprawled, an antelope-like creature with eyes that still look surprised. You help with the cleaning. It's not glamorous. There's fur and guts and more smells than adjectives. You try not to breathe through your nose. You help flay the skin, scrape it with a flint blade that's slightly too dull for comfort. Someone talks about using the hide for new water sacks. Someone else mentions a need for sandals. Your eyes blur. Your arms ache. At one point you flick blood off your hand and it lands directly on your leg. You stare at it. Contemplate leaving it there as a warning to future insects. A young woman, Ari, with the wild braid, hands you a hunk of meat. Take it to the drying rack, she says, and you do, stepping over scattered stones and ducking under ropes strung between wooden frames. You hang the strip carefully. Later it'll be seasoned with ash and thyme, then forgotten until someone remembers they're hungry. You rinse your hands in a shallow basin. The water's already murky from other rinse cycles, but at least it doesn't bite. You scrub anyway, trying to feel clean in a world that defines clean as slightly less smeared. Then you take a moment for yourself. You wander past the outer circle of huts to a space where the trees thin out and the ground dips into a kind of natural bowl. A small stream trickles there, not enough to bathe in, but enough to cool your fingers. You crouch and splash your face. The water's icy. You gasp softly. You stay crouched, elbows on your knees, watching the surface ripple. A beetle floats by on a leaf. Somewhere in the grass, a lizard darts. It's quiet. Not silent, just quiet enough to hear your own breath, your own heartbeat. For a second, the stillness feels eternal. Then you hear the distant thud of drums, not for dancing, for gathering. The kind that means something happened, good or bad, but urgent. You rise, brush yourself off, and jog back toward the village, half hoping it's just someone's birthday. Though with your luck, it's probably an escaped goat or a snake in the grain basket again. You arrive to a small crowd gathered in a circle. At the center, one of the hunters is holding a bundle wrapped in hide. Something's inside it squirming. A baby, no. A puppy, no. He unwraps it slowly, dramatically. It's a bird. Well, what's left of one. Feathers, wings, one beady eye blinking furiously. Everyone leans in. You're confused. Until the elder steps forward, peers into the bundle, and says, "This one came back, with thread on its leg. A message from another village," gasps, murmurs. They've responded. You don't know what they said, or why the message matters. But the energy in the crowd shifts, people whispering, some worried, some excited. You personally would prefer not to be invaded today, but it might just be an invitation, or news of the rains, or trade, or trouble. With prehistoric mail, the envelope is the same for everything. You're waved away, your role done for now. The council will decide what the message means. You return to your hut, which still smells like cooked roots and thatched grass. You sit at the entrance, watching the sun sink low behind the trees. Evening is coming fast now. The sky bruises into purples and golds. Shadows grow longer, like the day is exhaling. You rest your chin on your knees and wonder what tomorrow might bring. But for now, you just sit. The sky keeps shifting above you, as if the sun's setting is a quiet performance just for your eyes. Orange fades to pink. Pink melts into violet. Then that slow descent into the deep ancient blue of evening. There are no lights to turn on, no flicking switches. Darkness simply arrives. And when it does, it's complete. Your body aches in that satisfying, exhausted way. You've earned your rest. But rest doesn't mean silence, not here. The village begins to hum with nighttime activity. Children chase each other between the huts, squealing with that wild kind of glee that comes only when adults are too tired to stop them. Someone's lighting the main fire again, feeding it carefully with dry twigs and fanning the embers until it crackles to life. The shadows it casts dance like ghosts on the wall of the nearest hut. Which might sound poetic, but when you're half asleep, it's mostly just confusing and vaguely threatening. You make your way to the central circle. Tonight there's something cooking that smells far better than it looks. A stew, maybe. Hard to tell. It's bubbling in a clay pot that looks like it's survived 3 landslides and a herd of stampeding pigs. Still, it does its job. You sit cross-legged beside it, palms turned toward the heat, and accept the rough wooden bowl handed to you. Inside, mystery meat, softened tubers, a single wilted leaf for color. Gourmet, no. But you'd fight someone for a second helping. Someone tells a story. That's what nights are for. The voice is deep, gravelly. The elder with the crooked back and eyebrows like 2 squirrels. His name is something short like Tay or Mook, but it carries weight. When he talks, people lean in. Not just out of respect, but because he always ends his tales with something slightly terrifying. Last time, it was a creature with no mouth that screamed anyway. You haven't slept the same since. Tonight it's about a cave. One no one should enter. One that hums when the moon is full. A place where the air turns cold and your voice echoes wrong. You try to remind yourself it's just a story. But the way the others nod solemnly, you're not so sure. Historians still argue whether oral traditions like this were meant purely for entertainment, or whether they served as coded warnings, memories of real dangers passed down through the generations. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe you'll dream about that mouthless creature again tonight. You hope not. You'd prefer a dream about stew. After the story, there's singing, not harmonized or rehearsed. Just voices joining in whenever they feel like it, rising and falling like the wind. One woman slaps her hands against a flat rock. Another taps a bone against a hollow gourd. Rhythm, it seems, is universal, even when drums don't exist yet. And then, one by one, people peel away. Back to their huts, to their beds of fur and woven reeds. You follow suit, eventually rubbing smoke from your eyes. Your hut is small but familiar now. The air inside is warm. Still carrying the memory of your midday repairs. You lay down on the uneven mat, pulling a thin hide over your legs, and exhale. But sleep doesn't come easily. Not because you're restless, but because of what night really means here. It's not peaceful. It's not quiet. It's alive. You hear at first the calls of things beyond the firelight. Some distant, some less so. A sharp staccato howl that rises and vanishes. The flap of wings. The hiss of insects too large to ignore. Something scuttling past your hut. Something else landing on the roof, then leaping away. Night in a prehistoric village is an ordeal. You stare at the ceiling made of grass in your best effort and wonder if it can hold against claws. Probably not. But you're too tired to care. At some point you drift off, only to wake later, confused, heart racing. A shout. You're upright before you're even conscious. Another shout, then quiet, then footsteps running. You step outside and the fire's still burning, but the village is awake again. People clutching spears, whispering. Someone points toward the tree line. Eyes, they say. That's not helpful. Everyone turns toward the edge of the darkness, waiting. You do too. And for a moment, nothing. Then, movement. A figure steps forward, not a threat, a hunter, one of your own. He's limping, and behind him a shape dragged on a makeshift sled. Wood and rope and dried vines. He's brought something back, not food. Bones clean polished, arranged like a puzzle. Too many for one animal, too few for three. The shapes are wrong. He collapses. Others rush to lift him. You just stare at what he's brought. No one speaks for a long time. Eventually, the elder approaches, kneels, lifts one long bone to the light. It's from the cave, he says. You swallow. No one asks which cave. Everyone knows. And just like that, the village changes. The night feels heavier. The fire no longer warms, it casts suspicion. Fear doesn't spread loudly, it seeps. Slow and steady like sap down a tree. You return to your hut not because you're tired, but because there's nowhere else to go. You lie down again, eyes wide open, listening. Outside, the night continues, unbothered, unchanged. You wonder how long until morning. Morning doesn't arrive with the trumpet call. It sneaks in gray and soft. The kind of morning that forgets to bring sunlight. The kind that feels like it's holding its breath. You open your eyes, unsure of how long you actually slept. Your back aches in all the usual places, but something deeper sits inside your chest, a tension you can't name. You sit up, slowly listening. The village is quieter than it should be. No clatter of morning chores, no barked commands or cheerful insults. Just the crackle of the dying fire and the occasional rustle of wind through reeds. You step outside and find that most people are already gathered around the fire pit, their faces pale in the overcast light. No one is talking. The pile of bones still lies where it was left, covered now by a hide, as though that might make them less unsettling. You ask what's happening and someone gestures toward the elder's hut. Inside, the hunter is being treated. He's conscious, but barely. His leg is wrapped tightly in soaked bark strips and someone is spooning water into his mouth. His eyes open only briefly, but when they do, they fix on yours with a look that says, "I shouldn't have gone there." And you believe him. There's a discussion brewing among the elders. You can't hear all of it, but phrases float to you like ash. The wrong season. Should have waited for the moon. It wasn't meant for us. Apparently the cave he visited wasn't just any cave, it's that cave. The one from the stories. The one everyone agrees should remain undisturbed, not because of any specific curse, but because... well, because... Historians still argue whether these taboos were rooted in ecological wisdom, like avoiding caves that flood collapse or harbor predators, or whether they were spiritual protections for something our ancestors couldn't explain. Maybe the distinction doesn't matter. The fear is real either way. By midday, the village splits into factions. One group wants to bury the bones, quietly, respectfully. Another insists they should be burned so their spirits don't linger, someone says. A third group, smaller but louder, argues to return them to the cave. They were taken from somewhere old, the man says. And old places remember. That last part makes your skin crawl. Eventually, a decision is made. The bones will be returned, but not by the elders. They're too old. Not by the children, obviously. not even by the hunter who can't walk anyway. They choose 3 others, and because you were one of the last to speak, one of them is you. So that's how you find yourself packing for a trip you absolutely don't want to take. Rope, torch, spear. You wonder if courage is something you can carry in a bag. Doesn't feel like it. The others, Yarn and Liku, are quiet, both younger than you, both pretending not to be terrified. Liku keeps adjusting the strap on her satchel. Yarn keeps retying his sandals. You keep watching the sky, hoping it darkens enough to cancel the trip. It doesn't. When you finally set out, no one waves goodbye. It's not a journey meant to be celebrated. The forest is different this time. Still the same trees, same roots, same buzzing insects, but it feels like walking into a closed mouth, damp, shadowed, and somehow waiting. The cave isn't far, just over a ridge and beneath a rocky outcrop that looks like it's slouching under its own regret. The path there is narrow, barely more than deer trails. Every step feels like a choice you shouldn't be making. You arrive by mid-afternoon. The entrance is just as described, jagged and low, half covered by moss and stone. It looks more like a wound than a doorway. One of the elders said it sometimes breathes when the wind is right. You thought that was poetic exaggeration. It isn't. As you stand there, a gust escapes the cave like an exhale. It smells of salt stone and thyme. No one speaks. You light a torch. Inside, it's worse. The passage curves downward, slick with damp. Shadows lean in, greedy and long. Water drips somewhere deeper inside, echoing like footsteps. You press on. You don't know how far you go, only that the torch burns lower and your heart beats higher. Finally, you find a place that feels right. A small alcove. Natural but shaped as if it's been used before. You lay the bones down gently. Yarn says something soft. A farewell, maybe. Liku leaves a small shell beside them. You don't know why. You don't ask. And then, just as you're turning to leave, you hear something. Not words, not footsteps, not a growl or a whisper. It's the absence of sound, like the cave has decided you're not done yet. Your torch flickers violently. You freeze. A shape shifts in the deeper dark. Too tall, too still. Liku grips your arm. Hard. You don't wait. You run, slipping, scraping, not even thinking about where you're going, just away. The torch goes out. Everything becomes panic and instinct. You hit open air with a thud that knocks the wind from your lungs. You don't stop until the village is in sight. You don't explain. You don't need to. They see your faces and they understand. That night, no stories are told. No songs are sung. The fire is left to die on its own. And you, lying in your hut with blood on your palms and the memory of that shadow in your mind, wonder if this is what rules were made for. To protect us from the things we can't explain. To remind us that survival wasn't just about fire or food. It was about fear. The next morning doesn't come with any warmth. It arrives with fog. Thick, low, clinging to the grass like it doesn't want to let go. You wake up groggy, unsure whether you even slept or if your mind just went quiet out of exhaustion. The events of yesterday press down on your chest like a stone, dull but immovable. You sit up and breathe in. Even the air feels hesitant. You're not the only one affected. Around the fire pit, though, no fire burns. People gather in silence. You see Jarn and Liku on the far edge. Neither meets your eyes. There's a kind of pact now, unspoken and ironclad. We don't talk about what we saw in the cave. Instead, the village shifts focus. A different kind of preparation begins. Winter is coming. You can feel it now in the air. A brittle edge to the breeze, a dampness in the ground that never quite goes away. The elder women run their fingers through bundles of dry moss, testing for mold. Hunters begin to check snares and bowstrings. Children are taught how to pluck feathers from birds without damaging the skin. There's a rhythm to this, all routine, all survival. No one needs to be told what to do. Except you. You're still reeling. You try to get back to the chores, fixing a cracked pot, reshaping the hearthstones, patching the thatch on your roof. But your mind wanders. Back to the cave, to the flickering torch, to that shape in the dark. And you start to notice something. You're not the only one feeling watched. The birds are quieter than usual. The dogs bark at corners of the village where nothing stands. The fire seems harder to keep lit. Someone remarks that the air smells different, though they can't say how. A child insists they saw something standing near the storage hut, but when asked again, they say it was just a dream. You start wondering if you brought something back. Not a creature, not a ghost, a presence. Historians still argue whether early humans believed in spirits as external forces, things that could inhabit objects, animals, even weather, or as reflections of human emotion projected onto the world. But whatever the case, belief itself has a way of changing how people behave. And the village begins to behave differently. One elder stops sleeping in her hut and builds a smaller shelter closer to the edge of the forest. Says the dreams are too loud near the fire circle. Another man starts carrying a charm made from bird bones. Keeps the breath away, he mutters. The children are told to stay inside after sunset, and then the goats go missing. Just one at first, then 3 more. No blood, no tracks, just gone. The fences are reinforced, extra torches are lit. You find yourself gripping your spear tighter even in daylight. Someone finally speaks the words out loud. You shouldn't have gone to that cave. You want to argue. Say you were chosen. Say it was necessary. Say you were just returning what didn't belong to you. But deep down, you know it doesn't matter. Rules in prehistoric communities weren't optional. They weren't suggestions. They were the invisible walls between chaos and survival. Between us and whatever waits beyond the firelight. Break one and you don't just risk your own safety, you shake the entire structure that holds everyone together. And you did shake it. Now, whether or not it was justified doesn't matter. You're part of the crack running through the village now. Even the dreams feel different. They used to be strange, sure, foggy flashes of animals, water flight, but now they're darker. The cave shows up. So do the bones. And sometimes behind everything else, a shape that doesn't move but is always there. Yarn says he's having the same dreams. Liku doesn't say anything at all. That silence feels louder than the wind some nights. And here's the strangest part, no one blames you directly. They don't shun you. They don't cast you out. But they avoid your eyes. Your bowl at the fire is the last one handed out. When water is drawn, your jug is left until the end. It's not cruelty. It's protection. Not for you. For them. You've become a vector, a carrier. Of fear or curse or story, doesn't really matter what word they choose. You're the reason no one feels safe after dark. So you begin to change, too. You stay up later than everyone else just to watch. Not because you expect anything to happen, but because if it does, you want to be the first to see it. The nights stretch longer. The torches flicker more. Sometimes you think you hear breathing just beyond the edge of the fire. You never go check. Not anymore. Then one morning a child goes missing. The village erupts into chaos, not grief, at least not yet. Just frantic motion, search parties. Bark flutes blown into the trees to scare animals away. Everyone armed, everyone tense. They find the child by noon shivering unharmed near the riverbank. When asked what happened, she simply says he followed me. Who she doesn't know. She won't describe him. Just shakes her head and cries until her throat gives out. And you realize she's not talking about someone from the village. She's talking about something that was waiting. That night, no one speaks. And you lie awake holding your spear close, listening to the sound of the fire outside your hut. Wondering what rules you broke, and whether you'll ever be able to unbreak them. You wake up before dawn, if you can call it waking up. It's more like surfacing, like coming up from water that got thicker and colder the deeper you went. Your breath is shallow, your body stiff, and the fire outside your hut has gone out. Of course it has. You stare at the ceiling for a long time, watching it disappear into gray. There are no birds. There's always at least one bird, even in the worst weather, even during storms, even when someone dies. But not today. Not a chirp, not a rustle of wings. You step outside. The entire village is awake, but no one speaking. Just movement, eyes darting, people packing bundles, sharpening tools, whispering directions too quietly for you to hear. It looks less like preparation for a normal day and more like an evacuation. And in a way it is. Because this morning the child's father found a symbol drawn in the dirt behind their hut. A spiral made with a fingertip or claw. Large, deliberate, fresh. No one claims it. Everyone recognizes it. You've seen it too, back in the cave, carved into the wall just above the bones. You never told anyone about that. Now someone else has. Historians still argue whether prehistoric symbols like spirals, zigzags, and handprints were religious, artistic, territorial, or none of the above. Maybe all at once. But the fact remains humans remembered them, repeated them, feared and revered them. And now your people do too. A meeting is called. Elders sit in a tight circle, no fire, no children, just the serious faces of the ones who remember other winters, other signs. You're invited, but you're not welcome. You feel it in their shoulders, their silence when you approach. They don't ask questions, they just say what needs saying. Something has come back. Something that was once driven away by flame and chanting in time. And it's your fault. No one says it directly. But that's the shape their sentences make. You want to argue, but what would you say? That you thought it was just a story that you only meant to see, so instead you nod. And that's how you become part of the solution. You are given a task tonight. You will return to the cave, alone. You are to light a fire inside. You are to leave food and water and something from the village, a piece of cloth, a charm, a symbol of apology. You are not to speak. Not to look behind you. You are to enter, place the offering, and leave without hesitation. You're not given a choice. Even if you weren't technically responsible, you're the only one who can go. So you prepare. You sharpen your blade. You pack the food. You wrap the charm, a bird's skull tied with hair inside a small leather pouch. And as the sun lowers into the horizon, you try to memorize every face in the village. Not because you think you won't return, but because you think things won't be the same if you do. As twilight thickens, someone hands you a torch. It's longer than usual, bound with extra resin. It will burn for hours, that's good. You'll need every second. You walk. No one follows, no one watches. The trail is colder now. The trees feel taller. The same rocks jut from the same soil, but they feel sharper, less like nature, more like knives. And the forest doesn't make sound. You didn't think about that before, but it hits you now. No birds, no insects, no breeze. Even your footsteps feel muffled, like the ground is swallowing them. You reach the cave just after full dark. It hasn't changed, or maybe it has, and you just didn't notice how wrong it felt before. You hesitate. You weren't supposed to look inside, not really. Just leave the stuff at the mouth and back away. But your eyes adjust and you see the shape of the interior, the flickers of stone and shadow. And something in you decides no. Not this time. You step in. The air is thick. It smells like old water, burnt fat, and something sourer, something like copper. Like fear had a scent and it lived here. The flame in your hand quivers but holds. You move slowly. Each step deeper into the cave seems to pull something from you. Heat, courage, memory, you're not sure what, but you're lighter and heavier all at once. You find the spot. The bones are still there, and beside them newer scratches, not symbols, not drawings, marks, like claws or fingers scrape the wall again and again. You place the food, you place the charm, you press your forehead to the stone, though you don't know why. Maybe it's reverence, maybe it's surrender, and you whisper not words, just a breath, just to say I'm here. I understand. And then you turn, and in the entrance stands someone, or something, just a shape backlit by the moonlight outside, too tall, too narrow, still. You freeze, you blink, it's gone. You don't scream, you don't run, you walk. Because that's the rule. You were told not to look back. And the rule matters more than fear, more than logic, more than life. So you walk, you walk, you walk, until the trees are behind you, until the torches are ahead of you, until the air smells like wood smoke and ash and safety again. No one speaks when you return. They take the torch. They nod once, and they sleep. So do you. And in your dreams, the cave breathes. Not menacing, not angry, just tired, like it finally got what it was waiting for. The next morning, you're not sure whether to feel relieved or more afraid. Nothing happened. Not visibly. No one is missing. No new symbols carved into dirt. No howls in the distance, no trees snapped in warning. Just silence. Stillness. But that's the thing about ancient rules. They don't end with fireworks. They don't come with a clear you passed or you failed. They shift something quieter, something deeper. Like the way the forest smells different today, or how the fire crackles in a lower register, or how even the children are whispering when they play. You're not the same either. There's a stiffness in your shoulders that won't go away. A distant ringing in your ears, like the memory of wind moving through a hollow skull. When you look at the cave in the distance, just a shadow in the hills, you feel watched. Not in a hostile way. More like being followed by a dream you only half remember. Still, life must continue, because it always does. And in the prehistoric world, survival demands routine. So you're assigned a new task today, foraging further upriver. Not in the regular spots, not where the roots grow thick and the frogs bark in their puddles. No, you're going to the upper terraces, steep, rocky, and rumored to hold sweet tubers and bees' nests full of half-fermented honey. You bring 2 others with you. Both are older than you. One limps slightly, the other doesn't talk much. They've been here longer, seen more. And though they never say it, you can feel that they were chosen to watch you. Not just to help carry roots. You cross the stream barefoot. The mud pulls at your feet like it wants to remember you, like it's jealous of the cave. You don't slip, but it's close. You laugh about it quietly, the others don't. Upriver, the terrain shifts. Trees become sparse, rocks take over. And beneath your feet you see strange prints, not human, not quite animal. Wide, blunt with clawed toes, a hybrid shape. They're old, faded, but still there. You pretend not to notice. You don't say anything, and the others pretend not to notice you noticing. Instead, you reach the slope. The wind picks up, and from here you can see the whole valley, your village, the smoking fires, the path you took to the cave. And you realize just how small your world is. A few huts, a few fires, a cave, a handful of people, and the stories they believe to keep breathing each day. Historians still argue whether early humans had a concept of scale. Did they know their world was part of something vast? Or did each valley, each river bend feel like the edge of the universe? Hard to say. But from here you feel both truths at once. Limitless and trapped. You find the tubers under a sloped patch of earth where the roots knot like fingers in the soil. Digging is hard but comforting. You understand digging. You know how much force to use, how to wiggle the root free, how to scrape the dirt gently with your nails. It's almost meditative, until one of the others stops. He's staring at a tree. You turn. There's a mark. Another spiral. Not carved, Not scratched, painted. With something red thicker than dye, too viscous, too sticky. You don't want to guess what it is. This time the silence is sharp. The man who limps backs away without a word. The quiet one crouches, sniffing the tree bark, then wipes a finger through the paint and tastes it. You recoil. He shrugs. "It's not ours," he says softly. And you believe him. But instead of panic, there's a strange acceptance in the group. Like this moment was expected, like they didn't hope to avoid it, only to delay it. You bundle the tubers. You don't talk about the paint. You don't mention the clawed prints. You walk home slowly, the silence between you thick enough to chew. That night, another meeting is held. But this time, there's no circle, no fire. People just stand in the dark, their outlines lit by the dull glow of embers. Some speak in half phrases. Some pray quietly. Others sharpen spears, not because they expect to use them, but because it gives their hands something to do. You're not asked to speak, but you're watched. Again, the elders murmur. Not suspicion, not blame, just uncertainty. Like they've placed their bet and now they wait to see if the dice fall favorably. You don't sleep well, and when you dream the cave breathes again. But this time it's louder, closer, more awake. You wake before the sun, not because anyone called you, not because of a sound. You just wake, like your body already knows something's off. Your eyes open to the dim blue of not quite dawn, and the fire's embers are cold. That's rare. Usually someone stirs them through the night, feeds them slivers of bark, a whisper of dried grass. But now, just gray dust and a breath of yesterday's smoke. You sit up slowly and notice it. Everyone else is still asleep. Every single body around you is curled in quiet. No snoring, no rustling, just stillness. Too much stillness. You stand, quietly, carefully. Your foot brushes against someone's shoulder. They don't flinch. Not even a grunt. You check the fire again. There's something arranged in the ashes, a shape, another spiral. This one made of white stones and broken teeth. Human maybe, animal maybe, hard to tell in the light, but arranged too cleanly to be chance. You swallow, walk outside. The sky is a soft gray wash streaked with pink at the edges. The kind of morning that makes the world feel gentler, but not today. Today the air feels warped, like walking into a room where someone just fought and left the anger hanging in the walls. And then from the tree line you see it. Or think you do. A figure, not tall, not small, wrapped in something coarse fur, bark covered head to foot. Just standing, motionless, facing your camp, not moving, not breathing, not blinking. You think. Your instinct says don't stare, don't point, so you turn away, act natural, which is hard when your heart is trying to hammer its way through your ribs. You duck into the food hut, pretend to be checking dried meat. Your hands shake, your breath fogs slightly in the chill air. And when you look back, it's gone. Of course it is. You don't say anything. But you don't have to, because within the hour the whole village is awake. The elders are muttering. The warriors are fidgeting. No one mentions it, but they all know. The air smells different, like burnt hair and old bones, and someone is missing. A boy, 12 years old, had a cough last night, kept twitching in his sleep. This morning he's just gone. No footprints, no mess, just a flat dent where he lay, like he sank into the earth. A search party forms. You're not in it. Too young, too expendable in other ways. Instead, you're told to keep the hearth, which is code for stay where we can see you. You nod because what else can you do, so you sweep ash, stir embers, tend the smoke hole, and try not to wonder where he went, or why the spiral has teeth this time. Historians still argue whether early humans practiced ritual sacrifice. There's evidence, charred bones, odd burials, strange paintings, but nothing definitive. Some say they feared the spirits, some say they fed them, and some whisper that not all losses were mourned. By midday, the search party returns, empty-handed, no blood, no prints, just a bundle of reeds tied in a knot they say wasn't made by any of them. It's placed near the fire. No one touches it. A hush settles, and slowly the work resumes because it has to. Survival doesn't pause for fear. But you keep looking at the tree line, and you're not alone. At nightfall, there's a new rule. No one leaves the huts, not for water, not for wood. Not even for the latrine pit. Doors are barred, fires are smothered. No one says why, but you already know. There's something watching. Maybe it always was, maybe it only woke when the spiral was broken. You lay down again on your straw mat facing the doorway. This time you don't close your eyes, you just wait, and hope morning still means safety. The night stretches long, thin, and silent. You lie still, not sure if you're even breathing properly anymore. Every creak of the thatched roof sounds like footsteps. Every gust of wind across the doorway sounds like a whisper. You try to relax, try to tell your shoulders to unclench your jaw, to stop aching from holding tension so long. But your body doesn't listen. It's back in survival mode now. You can hear the others shift in their sleep. Or maybe they're pretending to. It's hard to tell in the dark. You reach for your little pouch of dried reeds and moss. You chew on them sometimes when you can't sleep. Not for taste, for the rhythm, for something to do with your mouth that isn't screaming. You're halfway through your second piece when you hear the tap. Not a knock, not scratching, a deliberate tap. Once, then silence, then again. You freeze. It's not at your door. It's at the side of the hut, right where the clay wall is thin and drying. Right where if someone wanted to, they could peel back the woven reed slats and reach in. You hold your breath. Then it stops. You wait, and nothing happens. Eventually, maybe out of exhaustion, your eyes begin to close, not in trust, but in defeat. And sometime between one heartbeat and the next, you drift off. In the dream you're running, bare feet over sharp rocks, trees whip past you, and behind you something not quite human. You never look back, you just know. And when you wake up hours later, you realize two things. One, your pouch is gone. Two, there are muddy fingerprints on the wall beside your head. You don't tell anyone, you just move a sleeping mat over that patch and hope nobody notices. Life in the village resumes. Because it has to. Someone is always grinding roots, someone is shaping flint, someone is collecting dung for fires. And you go back to helping skin small game, drying the hides, boiling bones for soup. It's almost normal. But the boy doesn't come back. His parents don't speak. And the spiral is replaced by a square. No one explains that either. Historians still argue whether symbols like these had strict meanings or if they were more intuitive, a way to speak in shapes when words didn't exist yet. Some call them proto-writing, others say they were charms, or warnings, or invitations. You never find out, because the next night something even stranger happens. The air smells sweet, not flowers, not honey, something almost artificial, like berries left too long in the sun. You wake up with your face stuck to the straw, and when you sit up, there's a smear of red across the floor. You think it's blood, but it's not. It's berries, mashed and smeared like someone was trying to paint with them. But there's no bowl, no basket, no footprints, just a crude outline of a hand on the floor with a second hand over it. Smaller, childlike, touching. You clean it before anyone else sees. Because somehow it feels private, like it was left for you. The next few days pass in a haze. No one goes missing, no strange sounds, just life. But it's the kind of quiet that feels like a held breath. You help mend a fishing net. You sort through cracked shells for bits of usable tool material. You listen to an elder tell a story about a cave with paintings that move when you sing the right song. You laugh, but you believe them. Because why not? If strange things are going to happen, let them be magical instead of terrifying. You sit at the edge of the village that evening staring at the horizon, and someone sits next to you. An old woman, face carved by time, eyes sharp like obsidian. She doesn't look at you, just says, "You saw it, didn't you?" You nod. She nods back. Next time she says, "Don't let it take something," and then she stands and walks away. You don't know what she means, but you have a feeling you will. Soon. The sun is different the next morning, not in color, not in brightness, but in presence. It doesn't so much rise as hover low, bloated, reluctant. The kind of sky that makes elders mutter and children go quiet without knowing why. You step outside and the air feels grainy, like the world's been dusted with something too fine to see. You check the fish traps by the stream. 2 are empty. One has half a frog. Another holds something else entirely, a tiny bundle of feathers tied with sinew into a perfect little knot. You leave it there. There's a superstition in the village: never bring home something tied that you didn't tie yourself. It could be a blessing, could be a curse. Either way, it belongs to something else now. And speaking of superstitions, your neighbor is smearing ash around his doorway. Not just above it like usual, but across the whole lintel in jagged patterns. You ask if someone passed. He doesn't answer, just hands you the bowl and walks inside. You do the same. Better safe than haunted. That evening, the gathering is unusually subdued. No singing, no dancing. Just bowls passed around quietly. Roasted yam, stewed fish, a few roasted beetles seasoned with dried moss. You eat without speaking. And then someone notices the old woman is gone. The one who warned you. No one saw her leave. Her hut is empty. Her fire has burned out. There are berries at the threshold, smashed, like a message or a goodbye. You don't sleep that night. You lie on your side watching the fire dim, listening for that tap. It doesn't come. Instead, there's a rustling. From above, from the thatch itself. You move slowly, gently, lifting your head, squinting at the shadows overhead. There's something in the rafters. Small, still, watching. You hold your breath. The fire flares briefly. Someone stirs the embers outside, and in that flicker of orange light, the shape above you vanishes. Just gone. No sound. No scuffle. You lie awake until morning. At dawn, there's a gift outside your hut. It's not food, not feathers, not teeth. It's a single perfect stone, smooth black, cool to the touch. Round with a small spiral etched into it. Like the one the boy wore. Like the one you saw replaced by a square. You keep it. You don't know why, but it feels polite. Historians still argue whether these symbols were part of a shared language or private tokens, like signing a letter in a code only 2 people understand. The spiral, some say, represented continuity. Others say it meant confusion or memory. You carry it with you that day, as the sun returns to normal, as the birds sing again, as the elders resume their humdrum mutterings about rainfall and goat dung. You help rebuild a fence that a boar knocked over. You trade sinew for obsidian flakes with a traveler from another camp. You listen to a young girl whisper to a tree and the tree rustle back. You don't question it. At this point, you've learned that belief doesn't require proof, just repetition. That night, there's laughter. Someone brings out drums. Someone carves shapes into a beetle's back and tells a joke about its spirit not knowing which way is up. You even laugh. And for a moment, just a moment, it feels like the village has exhaled, but you still sleep with one eye open. Not out of fear, out of habit. Because once something strange happens, it never really unhappens. It just waits for you to notice again. And tonight you notice something else. Your pouch, the one that disappeared, is back, sitting where it used to be. Neatly folded, refilled, with something that looks like moss but smells like fire. You leave it alone because maybe that too is a message and maybe you're not ready to hear it. The next morning, everything smells like rain even though the sky hasn't opened yet. That thick, heavy stillness hovers in the air, clinging to your skin like damp linen. The kind of weather where the village dogs won't bark, the birds perch but don't sing, and you get the eerie feeling that something is listening. You wake slowly, not groggy exactly, just hesitant. Like part of you isn't quite sure the night is over. You check for the pouch again. Still there, still folded, still full of moss you didn't gather. Today is trading day. You're assigned to go down the ridge trail to a meeting point with a neighboring group. You've done this before, swap fire-hardened clay for pine resin, fish bones for horn stories, for stories. It's routine, but today even that feels off. You walk the trail with others in your party, barefoot, packs slung across shoulders. The air buzzes, but there are no insects. Only that low electric silence before a storm. It pricks your nerves like 1,000 unseen eyes. You reach the clearing by midday. The other tribe is already there. They are not smiling, not frowning either, just watching. One of them nods toward your pouch. The moss, the one you didn't fill. You clutch it a little tighter. He lifts a small token from his own neck, a matching spiral. No words are exchanged, just recognition, like two people realizing they've both been in the same dream. Trading continues as usual. Clay for bark pitch, dried mushrooms for coppery pigment. One of your party tells a joke about a bear that married a woman and couldn't handle her mother-in-law. Everyone pretends to laugh, and then they offer something unexpected, a wrapped bundle of roots. Their elder leans forward and places it in your hands with a grave nod. Not for eating, he says softly. For remembering. You thank him, and don't ask questions. On the way home, thunder rumbles in the distance. Your companions pick up pace, anxious to return before the downpour. But you walk a little slower. The pouch, the moss, the token in your hand, they tug at you. You reach a fork in the path. Right goes home. Left leads to the river bend. You choose left. No one stops you. The trees are darker here, denser. The trail thinner, less trampled. You follow it until you reach the bend where the river curves around a large stone outcrop. There you find a mark, a spiral, drawn in mud, partially washed, partially fresh. You sit beside it, open the pouch. The moss is gone. In its place, a feather. Not just any feather, but one black as the river's shadow and too smooth to belong to any bird you've seen. You leave the token there on the spiral. A trade, maybe, or a closure. Historians still argue whether prehistoric people viewed rivers as roads or borders. Some say they were sacred boundaries between life and death or between clans and spirits. Others suggest they were simply highways of the wild followed by animals and travelers alike. You dip your fingers into the river. Cold, clear, moving. There's something comforting in that. No matter what happens in the village or in the shadows or in the rafters or in your dreams, this water keeps flowing, unbothered, uninterested, eternal. You return to the village before nightfall, your absence barely noted. A child hands you a fruit. A woman asks if you saw the red mushrooms blooming by the hills. You lie and say no, because some things are better kept quiet. That evening the wind picks up. Finally the rain comes, not hard, not wild, just steady, cleansing. It drips from eaves, trickles down paths, patters against your roof in soft rhythms like a lullaby from the sky. You sleep deeply for the first time in days. No rustling, no tapping, no dreams. Only that steady sound of water. You wake to a world washed clean. The rain has rinsed everything, the leaves glisten, the paths are slick but clear, and the air smells like crushed mint and wet stone. Even the village seems quieter this morning. Softer, like something holding its breath has finally exhaled. Breakfast is light. Some roasted tubers, a handful of nuts, a smear of berry paste on bark. You chew slowly, watching a line of ants march along the floor beam of the longhouse. No one talks much, not from fear or sadness, just contentment or exhaustion. It's hard to tell the difference these days. Today, your task is simple: help repair the western fence near the goat pen. It's more symbolic than functional. No one really believes the woven barrier will keep out wolves or strangers, but doing the work, tying new reeds, tightening the bindings, reminds everyone that effort still matters. That care is a kind of magic, too. The child who stole your pouch joins you. She doesn't speak, just sits nearby, weaving wildflowers into a crown. You watch her for a moment, then get back to work. By mid-morning, the sun returns mild and golden. It dapples the clearing, throws long shadows that stretch across the ground like sleepy limbs. Someone starts a soft rhythm on a hand drum. Nothing ceremonial, just idle tapping, a heartbeat for the village. The fence finished, you wander to the central hearth where some elders are telling stories. Not the big sacred ones, these are smaller personal tales. A memory about a raccoon stealing fish from a cooking pot. A misstep in courtship that ended with someone marrying the wrong sibling. Laughter curls through the smoke. You sit cross-legged, feeling the warmth of the fire on your shins and the chill of the wind on your back. The eldest woman leans in, eyes half-lidded, and begins one you haven't heard before. About a bird that forgets how to sing. She says the bird wanders the world searching for a melody that feels like home, and in every place it hears echoes, but never the original. Never the one it lost. The bird grows old. The bird forgets its own feathers, but still it flies. Someone asks, did it ever find the song again? She smiles faintly. No, she says. But by then the silence had become beautiful too. You look around. The fire flickers in every pair of eyes, and you feel for a moment less alone in your own searching. Like maybe silence is something you're allowed to keep. Later you help grind grains for the evening meal. The rhythmic scrape of stone on stone becomes its own lullaby. Your hands move automatically. You lose track of time. Not in a frightening way, just a drifting way. Like floating in a lake. And this evening the lake calls. You slip away before dusk. Follow the path past the hunting stones and the hollow log where owls roost. The air is thick with the sound of frogs, soft, pulsing, endless. You reach the lake's edge just as the sky deepens into indigo. Here there is no village, no duties, no watchers, just water. And your reflection. You kneel, not to drink, just to look. Historians still argue whether prehistoric people had a concept of self the way modern minds do. Some suggest identity was more fluid based on roles, seasons, family ties. Others point to burial sites and totems as signs of a personal journey beyond the tribe. But in this moment, staring at the water, you know something true. You are you. Whatever that means. You whisper your own name. Not loudly, not as a declaration, just to see how it sounds. The ripples carry it outward. No echo returns. And somehow that's okay. You lie back on the moss. Let the sounds of the night fold over you like a soft blanket. Your eyes trace the stars overhead where constellations you don't know flicker and dance, completely unconcerned with your questions. A soft rustle in the brush. A bird. Or something else. It doesn't matter. You are safe here. For now. Night doesn't fall here, it drapes itself over the village like an old friend, slow and familiar. You walk back under its weight, step by careful step, fireflies blinking at your ankles like shy lanterns guiding you home. By the time you return, the evening fire has been lit. Its glow spills across the packed earth, flickering off the faces gathered in a lazy crescent. Children sit in laps or lean against shoulders, half asleep, their bellies full of stew, thick with root vegetables and bitter greens. A woman hums a low, wandering tune that barely crests above the crackling wood. You ease into your place near the edge where the light meets the dark and let your legs go slack. Your body aches in that quiet, honest way, the kind of ache that says you were useful today. You take a breath so deep it feels like it brushes the bottom of your spine. Dinner had been plain but filling. Ground grain porridge with a savory paste from fermented beans. A strip of dried fish softened in the broth. And that new thing, some experimental mash of mushrooms and wild garlic left to sit in a stone bowl for 3 days. It smelled suspiciously like feet, but tasted complicated. Not bad, just prehistoric. Historians still argue whether prehistoric meals were communal by design or by necessity. Whether the sharing of food reflected spiritual kinship or simply the lack of storage options. You suppose it doesn't matter tonight. The bowl was passed from hand to hand and no one took too much. That's what matters. Someone asks for a story, not a myth this time. They want a memory. So you tell one. About a time you nearly dropped an entire pot of marrow stew into the river and how you had to sprint barefoot over sharp rocks to catch it. The pot made it. Your feet did not. The others laugh not at you, but around you, with you. It wraps you in warmth more potent than the fire. You watch sparks rise into the night, dancing toward the stars you still don't know by name. They look different now, brighter, like they've inched closer since last night. You think of the bird again, and of silence, and of how the two aren't so different. Eventually the gathering thins. People wander off in 2s or 3s. No goodbyes, just drifts. A few stay behind, poking the embers, listening to the wood sigh. You remain a little longer. Something in you doesn't want to go inside yet. The quiet out here feels better, like it fits you. You tilt your head back and let your eyes lose focus. Trees become shadows. The sky becomes a ceiling you could touch if you reached high enough. You wonder what tomorrow brings. More repairs. Another gathering, or maybe a hunt. There's a whispered rumor of a distant herd spotted near the stone ridge. Big ones. Dangerous. But that's tomorrow's story. Tonight there is only now. You hear soft steps approach. It's the child again. She places the crown of woven wildflowers on your head, then leaves without a word. The petals brush your cheek. You smile without meaning to. Maybe you were never meant to understand all of this. Maybe it was never meant to be understood, just felt, lived, dreamed. Your limbs grow heavy. The night wraps tighter. As you rise and walk toward the longhouse, your shadow stretches long across the ground, flickering in time with the fire's rhythm. Inside, the sleeping space is already half full. Quiet breaths, the occasional snore, the shifting of weight against woven mats. You find your spot near the back wall beside the carved post with the spiral pattern that looks like wind trapped in stone. You lie down slowly. The ceiling above is low and the scent of smoke and pine clings to everything. The fire outside crackles once more like the last word of a sentence you'll never quite remember. Your eyes close, and for once you don't dream of the world you left. You dream of this one, because it is yours now. The night does not come all at once in the prehistoric world. It lingers, unfolding in soft layers of dark, peeling away the final traces of dusk until only the stars remain pricking holes in the black fabric above. You're lying on your side now, curled beneath a hide that smells faintly of smoke and old fur muscles. Slack brain humming at that sleepy in-between frequency. A nearby sleeper shifts and sighs. The sound blends with the wind as it slips through the seams of the longhouse, cool and rhythmic like breath against your skin. Somewhere outside, an owl calls, once then again its voice echoing into the open woods. You keep your eyes closed, but your thoughts don't drift. They meander like a river branching in slow curls through your mind. You remember the first time you saw fire. You were smaller then, not a child, but not this version of yourself either. The flame seemed to dance just for you, orange and gold flickering like it knew secrets you'd never be ready for. You remember holding out your hand and feeling heat kiss your fingertips, not burning but warning. Fire gives and takes. That's what they always say. And in this world, everything you hold is like that. The stone blade you carried all day, its edge worn smooth with use, rests beside you. You didn't need it today, but you carried it anyway. A habit now. A reminder, not of danger, but of diligence. Historians still debate how often tools were personal property in early human groups. Were they shared communally? Were they buried with you when you died? The evidence is fragmentary. Burial sites with single tools, others with dozens. You think of your own blade and how you'd feel if someone else claimed it. Not jealous, just misaligned. This world has its own form of ownership, not of things but of moments. The way someone nods when you hand them a bowl. The way your fingers know which berries to pick, which to avoid. The way you remember a path not by landmarks, but by the way the air felt as you walked it. The fire outside is burned low now, just red bones glowing in the ash. You listen, and the village listens with you. There's no noise, but there's never silence here, just life turned down to a whisper. A rustle, a shifting weight, the soft scrape of hide against skin. Someone stirs again, a sleeper kicking gently in a dream. You wonder what they see. Another day of hunting. A lost sibling. A memory from before language. Your own dreams have grown stranger since you arrived. Less like movies, more like sensations. Falling through fog, climbing up a sky that bends, talking to people who don't speak but you understand them anyway. Maybe the past isn't just another place, maybe it's a rhythm, and somehow you're keeping time with it. You press your palm to the packed earth beneath you. It's warm still from the fire, from the people, from the memory of footsteps. And in that moment it feels like the whole world is humming just below the surface. A quiet lullaby sung by stone and soil and smoke. You're not afraid anymore, not of the dark. Not of tomorrow, not even of forgetting who you used to be. Because here in this prehistoric night, you are someone simple, not lesser, just distilled. The version of you that belongs entirely to the moment. No bills, no clocks, no passwords, just breath and bone and a fire slowly fading into its last embers. And as your thoughts begin to dissolve, as the last of the firelight is swallowed by sleep, you know you will wake up to a world exactly the same as the one you left. But you will carry this night with you, long after the smoke has gone. So as the world around you stills and your breath sinks into its own slow rhythm, let the images of this old, quiet world stay with you for just a while longer. Let the gentle crackle of prehistoric fire and the soft murmur of unseen wind wrap around your tired body. There's nothing waiting for you right now. No task, no pressure. Just this weightless drift into rest. If you're still half awake, let that be enough. You're allowed to hover here between waking and dreaming like smoke rising in the early night. You don't have to try. Your thoughts can wander. Your mind can soften. You've made it through the day, and now the only thing left is rest. Tomorrow can wait. The world will be there when you open your eyes. But for now, let yourself be carried by the warmth of ancient fires, by the quiet breath of people you'll never meet but somehow feel you know, by the rhythm of days that came before clocks and nights that held no screens, just sky. You're safe, you're seen, and you're allowed to let go. Close Close your eyes. Release your shoulders. Sink into the dark. Sleep well, friend.